The Longbox Crusade presents
Action Film Face-Off.
This episode, it's 2000 versus 1976.
Two films enter.
One film leaves.
Two men enter, one man leaves. Two men enter, one man leaves. Two men enter, one man leaves. Two men enter, one man leaves.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you got to be willing to take the hits.
Welcome back, everyone, to Action Film Face-Off, the show where two random years are selected. My brother brings an action film from one of the random years. I bring an action film from the other random year. Then those two films will do battle using a variety of criteria, and a champion will be crowned by the end of the episode. I'm Jared Ulrich, the yard sale artist of Death Probe, and my co-host is my brother Jason, no kind of artist but Weasel Skull. We are both military combat vets who take our action very seriously, but not too seriously. We're here to have fun. So real quick, Jason, what do we got going on here? I got a half blind fire. I'd seen U-571, never saw Shout at the Devil. What do you got, Jason?
I'd say it's kind of a quarter blind fire because I've seen both movies. U-571, I've definitely seen as an adult. Shout at the Devil, I saw as a kid when I was big into the Roger Moore, James Bond movie franchise. So I saw that on television, but I did not remember a bunch of it. It's been many, many years.
All right. So saw it, but no good memory of it. You know what? We'll break protocol. Let's check in early with our sniper. I'll officially introduce him later. For now, he's a mystery. Mystery sniper. Had you seen any of these before?
Yeah, I've seen U-571, but it's been since it first came out. I had never seen Shout at the Devil, never heard of it. I know who Lee Marvin and Roger Moore are, though.
So it's a step in the right direction. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you have it. Pretty much nobody really seen it. Jason kind of saw Shout at the Devil, but didn't remember it. And we're all checked out on U-571. And all right, Jason.
Yes, indeed. We are going to score each of today's films on a scale of 1 to 10 in 5 categories. Those categories are, if this is your first time, story, overall spectacle, best action scene, the hero, and the villain. And if it is your first time listening to this, it's going to be real confusing because it's not in that order. You're going to ask, why don't you change it?
Why don't you change it?
Because we do what we want.
Oh, okay.
But
have you guys thought about changing it?
We have.
Considered it.
But then we remembered we do what we want. But we'll still have a deduction round where up to 10 points can be subtracted from the film's total for whatever we determine is the low point of the movie.
Thank you, Jason. And as you already heard his voice on this, we do have a sniper. Now, the sniper has just 1 point to give in each category. So the sniper can sway the scoring by a total of 5 points. Let's meet our sniper for this episode. It's actually a return guest. I want to welcome back to the program Crusaders Club member and part-time trivia host Ezra Gallo. Ezra, welcome back.
Hello. Good to see you guys.
I'm glad you're here. Now, I did mention that you do host trivia. He lives in the big city and does a trivia hosting night. Do you do that weekly or is that a once a month thing? I can't remember.
I do once a month at Rojo here in Birmingham. I do the second Wednesday of every month there. And then in August, I'm going to do at another place called Mom's Basement. I'm going to do a night there. And it's a Monday night, I think the 7th.
Is it indeed in a basement?
It is indeed in a basement. There are pictures of people's moms on the wall.
Well, there you have it, folks.
It's like legitimately, they got a whole bunch of pictures of people's moms, put them on the wall.
Makes perfect sense to me. So if you are in the Birmingham, Alabama area and you want to do some trivia hosted by Ezra, he may tell you how to reach out to him at the end of this episode via the social medias. But he's been on before, so he reported to us what his 3 favorite action films were. So as a return guest, he gets the Rapid Fire 3. Even I don't know what question I'm about to ask him, but I'm going to ask him his top 3 action films starring Jackie Chan. Go.
The Drunken Master.
Nice. Yes.
The one with Chris Tucker.
Rush Hour.
Rush Hour. Thank you. thinking of the names is going to be really rough for me. And Super Cop.
Oh, can't go wrong.
I'm a cop, yeah. Super cop, yeah.
Okay, we could go wrong. Those are good. Those are good choices. I like those. I'm a big Who Am I? I think Who Am I has been on the show before. I think we covered Who Am I.
And Drunken Master.
Oh, and Drunken Master. That's right. That's right. Although I actually like Legend of Drunken Master, the second one.
I do too. Yeah, I like that.
But they're both so good.
I was actually thinking of Legend of the Drunken Master.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those are good films. All right, cool. So that's Ezra. We've got him coming back. Now, before our two films enter the Video Dome arena, and I think Jason installed extra spikes this week, we are thrilled to kick off this episode with special shout-outs to our Crusaders Club members. These are the folks who have joined our crusade. They enjoy early access to special long box episodes. They get priority seating to be guests on episodes, like Mr. Ezra Gallo is on this episode right now as a Crusaders Club member, and so much more. Lots of benefits, all the access. And these are the folks that are getting all the access.
Angelica Wolf.
Oh,
Auburn Elvis would like to thank you very much.
blast it or stash it.
Braxton Underwood.
Clinton Robinson.
Captain Entropy.
Dave Collins.
Battle wagon.
Ezra Gallo. Hey!
Hey!
Woo!
Meow, 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 meow. Gary V.
Gerald Green.
Jason Keene.
Jason Lady.
Jeremy L.
Jim Jarman. I hope you like Jim Jarman too.
Jim Meal.
Joe Thomas.
John Watson.
Josh Strickland.
Candace Ward.
The captivating Kathy Bright MVP.
Matt and Lissy Paso.
Mark Ross.
Maxwell Traver.
Miranda W.
P.D. Devons.
Paul Hicks.
Rick from Jeff and Rick Present.
Rob Morgan.
Samantha Maney.
Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 67.
Spreadsheet. We're counting on you.
Steve Cronin.
Tim Price.
Tony Pennington.
And our old buddy, the Toronto Cop. If we missed anyone on our list, we apologize. Keep in mind, we record these episodes well in advance of release, so if you're a recent edition, we will add you soon. But no worries, you can let us know that we missed you by sending your hate-filled emails to contact@longboxcrusade.com. Those will go to Pat. He loves hate-filled emails, and we'll get it straightened out. And if you're asking yourself, now, how do I do this? How do I become a Crusaders Club member? Just go to patreon.com/longboxcrusade. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to the amazing world of Crusaders Club, and we appreciate it if you come check it out. And if you don't have any scratch, but you're like, I really want to help those guys out over there, maybe, just maybe, you check out Longbox Crusade on YouTube and give us a subscription. We'd appreciate it.
All right. Let's crash dive and get back to the combat and learn a bit about the film gladiators about to battle for your pleasure, Trigger.
This is spot on. I thought he was on the show. This episode, I was assigned the year of 2000. I've selected U-571. What year did the randomizer select for you, Jason?
I got 1976, and let me tell you, that was a hellish year. A hellish year.
You know, Ezra and I were born on the same day in
A
1976.
hellish year.
If that's what
Jared.
you're going for.
A hellish year.
That's a great year.
And I put into our Videodome arena, Shout at the Devil.
We've got a fine matchup here, folks. Now, it's important to point out this isn't Jared versus Jason. We each had to select from our sign year. I might very well like his selection better than mine, vice versa. This is really more about us discussing some beloved action films and coming to a consensus on which one is going to be this episode's champion. Let's do a quick around the room of where we saw it. I have both of these on my Plex, so that's how I did it. Although I did see U-571 on the big screen back in the day, Ezra.
Back in the day, I saw U-571 as a rental. I watched one of these. I think it was The Shout at the Devil I watched on Tubi. And U-571 was a rental from Apple TV.
Jason?
Okay, so U-571, I saw originally in the theater. I watched it most recently off of your Plex at Delvin's house while I was waiting to catch my flight.
Nice.
So, yep. Got to use that time efficiently. For Shout at the Devil, I just wanted to make sure you made that connection. The hellish year to shout at the devil.
Oh, I thought you were
Hellish
like
year.
saying it was hellish. 'Cause
Oh, I got it.
When I
Well, it was. Yeah, I was gathering all
Yeah,
of
also,
it into one.
also our birth. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, I just want to make that clear. So, shout at the devil. Did a search, right? Came up on Plex. It had ads. So I said, maybe I can borrow it from Jared's. Thought about that, but then I was like, oh, wait, I can just order the DVD and it'll get here. So the DVD showed up and I looked at it and it was Region 2 encoding. And not,
no, it's not bueno. I don't know if Region 2 is South America or not.
It was not specified as such on Amazon. I just want to point that out. So by the time I found that out, I was like, Jared's probably already asleep. So I went back to the streaming Plex and watched it with ads. That's a long explanation, but it was a journey, man. It was almost as much of a journey as Roger Moore took in that movie.
We'll definitely talk about that. Speaking of which, this is your spoiler warning. If you've never seen 1976's Shout of the Devil or 2000's U-571, we recommend you go ahead and pause here if you want to go watch those and then come back because we're going to spoil the heck out of them. So you've got until the other side of this little Joe November musical break. All right, we're back, and I'm going to jump in with some quick info on 2000's U-571.
Everybody fall in now!
What's going on here? Hell if I know.
Gentlemen, it's our turn.
In the last Great War,
All head 2/3. All head 2/3, Doc.
a group of young Americans was sent to overpower a Nazi submarine
The S-33 will rendezvous with a U-boat posing as the German resupply sub.
and steal a secret that could turn the tide of battle.
You'll be all right, son.
You get them their damn trophy and you get the hell out of there.
I found it! Arch, I think we got the code book!
But just when they thought the mission was over,
Success, gentlemen.
they lost their ride home.
Everybody locked in!
Trapped in an enemy submarine,
I need speed!
Everything's in German.
I can't even land the dude!
deep in hostile waters,
Incoming! Die! Die!
the key to victory rests with 9 men.
When they realize what you've discovered, they'll send every ship in the Navy to destroy you.
Splashes.
A story about the courage that wins wars.
Permission to abandon ship! Object G!
The moments
Crazy, you're gonna get us killed.
that change history.
We're gonna find out who we are in about 60 seconds.
Right now we die!
U-571.
Your cast and crew are as follows. The film starred Matthew McConaughey, Bill Paxton, and Harvey Keitel. It was directed by Jonathan Mostow. Your synopsis goes a little something like this. During World War II, the Allies desperately needed to break the German naval codes, and now they have their chance. An American sub disguised as a Nazi U-boat intercepts a floundering Nazi submarine with the mission to get their hands on the code machine. But things don't go exactly to plan, and the American ship's young XO is thrust into the leadership role he's always wanted, but in less than ideal circumstances. It's cat and mouse with the German Navy as the limping along submarine and her skeleton crew try to survive long enough to get the decoder into Allied hands. See, Jason, I wrote a synopsis.
I noticed. I looked at it earlier. I was like, that's pretty good, too.
All right. Now let's get to the interesting trivia. Here's your 3 nuggets for you, 571. The Enigma machine used in the movie was a genuine Enigma machine. It was not a prop. It was obtained from a collector for use in the movie. Numero 2. For authenticity, the stage crew made a working submarine for filming in the Mediterranean off the coast of Malta. During production, an American warship appeared, and it was so taken in by this Nazi submarine, they actually sent an armed team to board it and make sure there was nothing wrong. They probably thought they went back in time. What was that movie we saw?
Countdown.
Yeah, like Final Countdown. Like, what the heck is going on here? And finally, you'll probably get a kick out of this one, especially if you're a history buff, like I know Jason is. History Channel review of this movie, which aired soon after its release, included a German World War II U-boat commander. And at the end of the show, he was asked for his opinion on the authenticity of this movie. His response was, and I quote, "They got one thing right in the movie. There were U-boats in the North Atlantic during the Second World War." Apparently, he was not impressed.
Well, you got to start somewhere, I guess.
You know, those German judges are harsh, though.
Wildly historically inaccurate.
Yeah. We could talk more about its inaccuracy. It's more for entertainment than it is like an actual, like, sort of quasi-documentary. But we'll talk about that. Jason, what you got?
Well, I've got 1976's Shout at the Devil.
An epic so vast it took 2 years to create, and 2 continents to contain it, at a cost of over $10 million. Shout at the Devil. Filmed with all the spectacle of King Solomon's mines. The passion, the snows of Kilimanjaro. The drama of the African Queen. Shout at the Devil. Starring Academy Award winner Lee Marvin as Flynn Patrick O'Flynn.
I just need a helping hand.
Roger Moore as Bassie. Barbara Parkins as Rosa.
I'm gonna have a baby.
You rapist!
Shout at the Devil.
Look, it can't be just us anymore. The whole damn world is fighting now.
I want Flynn! Drag them out!
Naval intelligence believe the Blucher may not be sunk after all. But hiding. So we'll do it by aerial reconnaissance. I've got just the man for you. Eyes like a hawk.
You want somebody actually to go on board the Blucher and plant a bomb?
The lives of 20,000 men are at stake. It's a race against time.
Lee Marvin. Roger Moore. Barbara Parkins. In Shout at the Devil. It's the greatest African adventure ever filmed.
Its cast and crew included Roger Moore and Lee Marvin, and it was directed by Peter Hunt. Synopsis goes a little something like this. Let me tell you, this was a tough one to write. A lot of things happening in this movie.
Yeah, it's a broad film.
Mm-hmm. But basically, Flynn O'Flynn is just your average Irish-American hustler trying to make an honest or not so honest buck in 1913 Zanzibar. In his latest scheme, he needs a British citizen and partners/hustles, a naive Sebastian Oldsmith to help him plunder ivory on German territory. His frequent misdeeds runs him afoul of the German Commandant Fleischer. Over the course of their adventures and misadventures, the duo become inseparable when Sebastian marries Flynn's daughter, Rosa, and they have a daughter of their own. World War I changes everything, though, as the emboldened Commandant ups his bloodthirsty quest for revenge against the two and commits horrifying atrocities. Now on a quest of revenge of their own, Flynn and Sebastian become sucked into the Great War as they embark on a deadly mission to find and sink a German warship. My trivia nuggets are as follows. So apparently Lee Marvin got into a fight with Japanese journalists, and according to Roger Moore's biography, this was largely due to Lee Marvin's lingering resentment of Japan after his experiences in World War II. And even though he played the young son-in-law, Roger Moore was 47 during the filming, and Lee Marvin was 51. And those were 51 city miles. Yeah, I don't know if it was so much that Roger Moore was old and looked young, or Lee Marvin was young and looked old.
Little column B.
Anyway, it worked out. And then Bond connections. We have several Bond connections here, so I just flagged them. So we got Roger Moore, obviously, directed by Peter Hunt of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And then as the credits were rolling, I also spotted second unit director John Glenn.
Oh, the Bond director of the 80s. That's cool.
Now that we have the basics on today's contestants.
Ladies and gentlemen, test your might. Let's get ready to rumble! It's a street fight.
Okay, folks, let's get it going. Before we get into the meat of it, I'll remind you of Match Game. We got 2 films, 5 categories, 10 scores. I have not seen Jason's scores. He has not seen my scores. So we can match up to 10 times. Make your bets. How often are we going to match on this episode? Speaking of scores, let's set your barometer appropriately. On this show, if you get a 5, that's right in the middle. That means it's decent. It's okay. It does its job. We think of it as, pretty good made-for-TV movie level as a 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You got yourself a fine film. 4, 3, 2, 1. You got things to work on. And with that, let's get into round 1. Round 1 is the story. How engaging and original is the story? We will start with U-571 in the distant year of 2000, and Ezra gets the first word on his thoughts of the story. Go ahead, Ezra.
Historically, as mentioned, it's not necessarily very accurate, but entertainment-wise, I was very entertained by the story. I appreciated that it was pretty easy to follow. It wasn't convoluted. You kind of knew what was going to happen, and you were able to just kind of stay engaged through the movie.
Wholeheartedly agree. And I'm throwing a little bonus trivia nugget. If you've seen the movie, as soon as it ends, like before the credits, there's a little scroll that says, how it really went down. I think it was actually British ships that got their hands on the decoder.
Yeah, there were actually like a dozen decoders that British ships had done before we even entered the war.
Before we even got in the war, yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently what happened is we'd sent early screening copies over and the British got upset about it. And so they added that bit to okay, we don't want to take anything away from you guys. There was a misunderstanding between, authenticity and just a good story. And I agree with you, Ezra. Get rid of the authenticity and just enjoy yourself like a World War II movie. And it's pretty gripping, but I'll let Jason speak to that.
Yeah, I think the danger with submarine films in general is you have all the tropes, right? And they all have kind of the same tropes. Yeah, oh, we got to be quiet. Oh, the depth charger. Splashes. We got to go deep. We got to go deeper than it's safe to go, right? And this film did have all those tropes, but to me, what made it interesting was the character, and particularly Matthew McConaughey's character, because he is somebody who's set up at the beginning of the film. The captain's like, hey, you're a great XO, but I don't think you're going to be a good captain. And then all of a sudden, in Act 1, he's the captain. And you're like, that's a problem. It's going to be a problem. Because even Harvey Keitel's character as chief of the boat, you got the sense, even though he didn't come out and say it, he supported the captain's decision on this. So even Harvey Keitel's character is like, I don't know.
Not my business.
Right, not my business. But, so that's what makes it really interesting. You have somebody that at the beginning of the film is immensely unqualified to do this job that he is suddenly thrust to do. and we watch him grow and develop. And so the tropes become the things that he has to navigate on his journey. They don't necessarily become central to the story. He is the story, his growth, his development, accomplishing his mission and saving as many of his sailors as he can, and learning the terrible lesson that in war, you're not going to be able to save everybody all the time, every time.
I wholeheartedly agree, Jason. After, I probably mentioned this once or twice on the network, but after teaching leadership classes for 20 years, this is an excellent film case study of leadership. That is really the heart of it. And I have to go on record to say, I think it fits probably best here in the story segment. I thought one of the things they did really well in the film, the historical stuff might not have been authentic, but I think the way the chief played and the way the captain played, like I think military authenticity is what I'm getting at. I love the fact that everybody on the ship knew he had been turned down, probably before he did, because that is very military organization right there.
The cook's like, that's too bad for you.
Yeah, like, wow. So I really felt like the military authenticity was there, given all my time on World War II submarine missions. All right. Well, with that, let's shift gears. Let's go to Shout the Devil, kind of a broader film. Still has some nautical themes in it, though. And once again, Ezra gets the first word on the story.
I'm confused. I don't know a lot about the story for this one. There's a guy with ivory. I think the years jump maybe 3 to 5 years at a time. At some points, I was just very confused. I know that there was a German guy that the British and American guy had to fight.
According to my notes, that's true. Well, you're saying the story was a little all over the place. Is that
Yeah, it was a little convoluted. It was not as easy to follow along as the other movie, but I still enjoyed watching it. But the story was just a little bit too much, too involved.
Yeah. I definitely have things to say on the story too. Not that it was terrible, but you know what? Let's let Jason weigh in and I'll see what's left over.
I enjoyed the story on this one. It was kind of a sprawling epic, but in essence, where you start is kind of 1913 Zanzibar. And Zanzibar is getting carved up. This is the era of colonies. Germany's trying to grab colonies. Philippines have colonies. The Brits have colonies. The French have colonies. So they're all carving out pieces of this nation. And in the midst of all of this, you got Flynn, Lee Marvin's character, that's just a hustler trying to make a buck off of this. And he's running afoul of the Germans because he's poaching ivory on their land. And that was kind of disturbing, the whole elephant hunting thing for me. I did not like it, but it was of its time. So there is that. But the engine of the story is when Roger Moore's character, Sebastian, comes aboard. And Flynn needs him because he needs a British citizen to colonize certain land so he can go poach on it. And it really just kind of shows the childlike mentality of these colonizing nations, how they incorporate the local population into their armies and into their service. And it's almost like a little game at the beginning of it in 1913, where the German commandant really hates Flynn, and Flynn doesn't like him either. But there are rules that they're playing by, right? It's almost like a Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote situation that we have going on. And then the war kicks off in 1914. And then all the gloves come off. And the commandant goes and destroys Lee Marvin's property, murders his granddaughter, and threatens his daughter and almost kills her as well. And so the story takes a sudden sharp turn. So these two characters that over the course of a year have really kind of bonded together, now they go from kind of like hustlers and look at us, we're kind of cool, live for the moment guys, to basically war heroes running a resistance in Africa and trying to get revenge on this commandant. So there's really a sudden right turn in about the third act of the film that I kind of like, though, because it really, to me, historically juxtaposes how the whole world changed in an instant from 1913 to 1914. And I remember reading a book, I think it was Shackleton, that went to Antarctica. Like he left in like late 1913, got down there in 1914. By the time he got back, the war had been going on for a year. In his writings, he's like, I don't even recognize this place. What happened? It's like a whole different world that I came back to. And we kind of see a little microcosm of that in this film. I'm sorry, I ran a little long, but I liked it, Jared.
Okay, I'll kind of cut to there.
I feel like that's exactly what I said. And
it's not so many words, but
I will add, though, that I did kind of think it was very much a 3-act movie, with each one almost being its own story. I think the connection between them is where the story itself kind of loses me. It kind of goes from that initial part to now we're just living together and now we have to fight the Germans. I just didn't feel connected between them. That's probably my only real complaint about it.
The word I used after I finished watching it was uneven. I felt like we had like this jaunty romp of a film, and then it was like, bam, dead baby. And it's just like, God, dog, that is hard right there. That is hard right there. But you're right. Jason's right. I mean, it does a good job of showing you, like, during the colonization area, it was the Wild West out there. It was like, get what you can get, and the world hadn't kind of settled in yet, for better or worse. A lot of times for worse, especially, the ivory stuff. I do like how the filmmakers, even in 76, knew that wasn't cool because they were plastering like, seriously, no animals were harmed in this movie, like all over that dang movie.
Don't troll us, yo.
Yeah, seriously.
We didn't harm not one animal.
But it's definitely an interesting
killed
movie.
A baby. We killed a baby.
We killed a baby, but not an elephant, right? But yeah, it's just an uneven movie, but broad and interesting in its own way. So that listeners, take from this what you will. I think we've covered the bases pretty well. So well, in fact, I think it's time to score them. Jason, let's double back to U-571 in the story on a scale of 1 to 10, and you have to use 15 words or less. What did you score the story of U-571?
That was a good, tight story. Historically inaccurate, but very entertaining. Gave it a 7.
And we lead off with our first match game. I also gave it a 7. Shout at the devil. This is going to be, all over the map. So what do you got for the story?
I like the story of the two men. I like the juxtaposition of life before World War I and then right after World War I. I gave it a 7 as well.
All right. You liked it a little more than I did. I gave it a 6. I wasn't as engaged as I was in U-571, but I can appreciate its broad scope. And now we go to the sniper. Ezra, with just one bullet to give, which move do you think had a better story?
Just on the fact that it was a little easier to follow, I'm probably going to go ahead and give that bullet to U-571. But I was entertained by both stories. It's pretty close to me, but just the edge to U-571.
I think that's fair. Simpler story. And like I said, easier to follow. That's for sure. But anyways, that's it for round 1.
All right. Well, that leaves it to me to start round 2. And round 2 is the hero. We're going to talk how cool the hero is and maybe that hero's ensemble. And we're going to go ahead and we'll talk with Ezra about U-571.
Obviously, Matthew McConaughey is going to be your hero here. He's dreamy. And wait, did you trick me? Wait, he's a good-looking man. He's a good-looking man, but he's also here in Birmingham. If you happen to be here right now, you might see him out around town. But the character to me starts off, and you guys touched on it. Jared, you touched on it. He seems a little weak as a leader to start off, and then the guys kind of get behind him. I felt like it's a little difficult to fully give him credit as the hero for me, but I think he does definitely have that hero's journey. My one question that I would ask to you guys is, anytime I've ever seen military things, particularly on ships and stuff like, large ships, in the Navy or something taking place at the Pentagon or something like that, the officers would call the enlisted guy, Mr. Jones, Mr. whatever. But on this, all of his subordinates are calling him Mr. instead of Lieutenant. And maybe that's just of the time. I really don't know. So anyway, I guess I just have a question about the hero.
I think it's more of a Navy thing. In the Army, we would address the officer by rank or sir or ma'am. In the Navy, they also can address by rank by sir or ma'am, or the general term Mr., except for the captain. That's captain.
Okay.
Skipper.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, very, very Navy thing. I learned that from that movie, Mr. Roberts. Actually, that's where I learned that, watching that growing up.
Well, I agree with what you said. I really focused on that one lecture that Harvey Keitel gives to Matthew McConaughey when he says, "Don't you ever say I don't know, because you always know, even when you don't." I thought that was a really good, poignant, hey, it's time to grow up, son, moment in the movie. Anyway, but it's not my turn. It's Jared's turn. Jared, what are your thoughts on Matthew McConaughey? Was he all right?
He was. And, a lot of times in this round, we kind of expand to the people around him. And I'd completely forgotten when I watched this in preparation for the show that Harvey Keitel was in it. And I just loved his character. He was the consummate senior NCO. Like you said, the private talk. You don't ever say, I don't know. Man, that must have stuck with me, because I remember maybe they taught that in ROTC at Auburn. Maybe it's because I saw this movie shortly after getting commissioned, but that stuck with me. I was like, I will never say I don't know to my troops. Never. Basically, like, make up something, say it with confidence, and reserve the right to change your mind later. That's what I was taught. So yeah, that was awesome. As a character study and leadership, Matthew McConaughey played it brilliantly. Harvey Keitel was awesome. A lot of good supporting younger enlisted guys. A brief appearance by Bon Jovi, which was, interesting.
He went down in a blaze of glory, though.
Damn it, I was going to say he went down in a blaze. Hang on, let me take that.
Oh, like the song.
It's because he did a song. Yes. Anyways, liked him a lot. You guys covered everything else, though.
Yeah, I'll say the other scene that really stuck out to me, even though he was still growing on that raid on the ship, there was a scene when the one enlisted crew member was going to steal the wedding ring off the body. And he didn't even say a word. He just looked at him, held out his hand, took the ring back, and put it back onto the corpse. Mm-hmm. And I think that said a lot about the respect the men had for him. So the foundation was solid. That was kind of a message that this film does a really good job about showing, not telling. Okay. Well, let's pass it on back to Shout at the Devil. There we go. Ezra, let's talk about the heroes, Lee Marvin, Roger Moore. Shout at the Devil.
Well, I like both of these guys a lot. Roger Moore, obviously, he was in The Saint and some other British TV shows. And
Cannonball Run, don't forget.
Cannonball Run was really good in that. He did that Van Damme movie,
Yep. Another one, The Quest.
The Quest, yeah. So, I mean, he's got a legacy of action heroes that I was a fan of. And then Lee Marvin, obviously, The Dirty Dozen and everything. So I'm just a big fan of these guys. And just, I don't know, getting to see them in this era and something that's a little out of the ordinary from other things I've seen them in, I really enjoyed. I think they definitely had a journey as well, from just being a couple drunks to being someone you were actually rooting for by the end. I enjoyed watching their journey and watching them start to have some mutual respect and even consider each other family by the time it was over.
Yeah, there was kind of a natural progression where Roger Moore really is just the mark at the start. It's interesting to see Roger Moore grow and develop throughout the course of the movie, but I'm not going to say anything more about Roger Moore. I'm going to pass it over to Jared.
Really, I can only echo Ezra. I think he's right. Really cool to watch these two characters grow through the quote-unquote recruiting / con game to fall in love with his daughter. Who could have seen that happen? Like, the one pretty girl, found the handsomest dude.
Roger Moore found the one pretty girl in Zanzibar.
Like, wow, that's interesting. You guys worked that out, right? But yeah, it was definitely a journey. It was definitely played well. I agree with Ezra. These are two actors doing stuff we don't often see them in, playing roles that we don't often see them play. So all I can do is echo Ezra. I think he nailed it.
James Bond. That was the other one.
That was the other series
I was trying to think of. Yeah.
I wanted to give a shout out to my man Ian Holm as Muhammad.
Yeah, he was pretty cool.
He stole the show in my opinion, and may be reflected in our final scoring round.
I kept looking at him. I was like, wait a minute. That's that son of a betrayed everybody in Alien.
That's right. He's also in The Hobbit. At any rate, well, it's time to score these suckers. All right, Jared, it's time to lay out your cards. What are you giving the hero for U-571?
Solid 7. Liked Matthew McConaughey's portrayal a lot. Everybody around him did really well, too. So this is, the barometer. Roger Moore and A View to a Kill. I thought he was on par. I was like, he's pretty good. 7.
I really liked it. I liked Matthew McConaughey's character. I liked his journey. I liked Harvey Keitel. He really kind of classed it up. Had a good supporting cast around him. So it's an 8 for me. All right. We're going to go over to Shout at the Devil and talk about Lee Marvin, Roger Moore. What'd you give that one, Jared?
I wish I could have gotten a little something more out of it. Maybe again, it was the sprawling story or the hard left turn it took with the dead baby. But in the end, I liked him to a 7. I feel like there's more potential there than a 7, but that's where I landed.
Well, I gave it an 8, Jared. I liked it a little bit better because I really liked the chemistry between Lee Marvin and Roger Moore. I liked Ian Holm as Muhammad. I just thought it was really cool. And holy cow, that ending when he shot that German dude dead, spoiler alert. Oh, he channeled that energy into that For Your Eyes Only kicking Locke off the cliff.
Yeah, he did.
Man, he had that. I am not going to be messed with. Because his wife was all like, I'm going to shoot him. He's like, give me that.
Now, see, I want to talk about that scene now because I was like, yeah, I mean, he definitely took his revenge, but I really felt like he shot him to death so that she wouldn't have to. Like she wanted to, but I think he knew what it felt like to kill people and have that on his soul for the rest of his life. And I felt like he protected her from that.
I do agree. I think there was that scene earlier on where she shot that German officer.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
She got her hands dirty. And I think he was like, I don't want to see her like that again. But he also, boy, you read it in his eyes. He's like, I am not wasting not one bullet. It's going down.
Like Stromberg. Remember he put several bullets in Stromberg.
Ooh, yeah, maybe he channeled that scene for Stromberg. All right, well, that just leaves the sniper. So, Ezra, which movie are you going to give your bullet to for the hero?
Well, this is pretty close for me. It might be the first time in the history of action film face-off that the sniper bullet goes to a character who at one point was in blackface, but I'm going to give it to Roger Moore and Lee Marvin in Shout at the Devil.
We were trying to avoid that scene.
Oh, no, we're not. Wait till we get to the deduction round. Yes. I know there's probably a handful of people on this planet that have seen Shout at the Devil, and they're probably like, we are 30, 40 minutes into this podcast, and they haven't brought it up yet. Oh, it's coming. But we're not going to dwell on it.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, that wraps up my round. That's round 2. Jared, back to you.
That means it's round 3.
Tiger uppercut.
Round 3 is the villain. How compelling is your villain? How memorable is your villain? Great villains help elevate a movie. So let's talk about it. Jason, I believe you get to go first this time, and you start with U-571. And what do you got?
Well, and we've discussed this on other films. The Nazis always make great villains, right? Because all you got to do is show them up and he bad. And that's kind of what we have here. It's U-571 against the Nazi Atlantic Fleet. We do have a little bit of a personal grudge match with the captain who survives the initial assault and ends up killing one of the crew and betraying them along the way. I'm not exactly sure why they didn't throw him overboard a long time ago, but I think what they were trying to do with the film was to give it a face for a villain, as opposed to like, this is just Germany and other submarines and other warships. I don't know that it really helped that much. The captain wasn't really memorable to me. And to me, he just was kind of like sneaky and slimy. When I saw him in the first act, I had a little bit of respect for him as a captain, even though he was a captain of the enemy side. And then after that, I don't know. It just didn't quite land for me. I'll just leave it there.
Fair enough. Ezra. Villain's a little nebulous in U-571. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously just Nazis are the villain. And, that's that general thing. I guess maybe the dude that's tapping Morse code is, putting a face on the guy that's doing something bad. I think they mentioned the Fuhrer one time during the movie. So obviously, anytime you mention Hitler, he's a supervillain of all supervillains. But I feel like it's so much just general Nazis. I think of Indiana Jones, where, in those movies, Nazis are often the villain, but they also put a face to a guy. In Raiders, the guy with the medallion, and also Belloc. You have that face of the Nazis rather than just a generalized idea of them. So I think it kind of suffered by not having someone that was a little more charismatic to be the face of the villain.
And I agree with you guys. Not the world's highest score here. One thing I liked about the movie, Jason and I talked about this because it was so compelling, I don't know, a few days ago. One of the things that this movie does really well, and in some ways it's kind of uncomfortable, is when the Americans get aboard the Nazi submarine and they start looking around, there's almost a realization that these guys are us. We're the same people. They decorate the same. Their bunks are laid out pretty much the same. And it makes you kind of do that deep think. And we've probably said this on this program before during an Indiana Jones movie or something. Obviously, no way do we want to defend the Nazis, but down to that individual level, they're the same.
Melvin likes the uniforms.
Well, we all do. They have a sharp uniform, but you know what I'm saying?
Most of them are following. Yeah, most of them are following orders.
Yeah,
most of them aren't. Most of them aren't SS officers.
Right. They're warfighting professionals, is what I'm saying. It's just like it. And I think the movie kind of lingered on a couple of those things to kind of give it that depth. Once they took over that sub, they were like, they're not demons. They're us. They're us. And to me, that's always just an interesting part of war. We've been to war. Jason and I've been to war. The minute you don't respect that enemy is the minute they get you. And it's just a deep thing, I thought. And I really appreciated the movie doing that. And I can only really talk about that here in the villain category because there's not much else to talk about. Okay, so let's shift gears to a very easily identifiable villain, Jason. Let's go to 1976, and it's those dang Germans again.
Yes, but they're the World War I Germans, Jared, so it's entirely different. Commandant Fleischer.
Dude loved him some meat products.
He does. He was hooked up, man. He had it going on. This could just be me personally. Like, he was just disgusting. He was just gross.
He's a man who had been unchallenged for far too long.
Right. Like, even that captain of the warship during the first act of the movie is just like, why am I even listening to you? This is ridiculous. This is a farce what you're doing. This little tete-a-tete, with Flynn and his folks. And it goes to that right turn again. Right? Like we talked about at the beginning. He goes from this almost gross comical character to somebody that's just plain evil in the blink of an eye. I know that I said I kind of got it at the beginning of the film, but it was really jarring for me to see it personified in the actual character. I got a sense that the man was really happy with his station in life. He was really irritated by Flynn, but he was lazy. And I just didn't really see that character turning in that so evil direction. And it was almost as if the film just really suddenly said, we need a really bad villain for the third act. And this guy's the closest thing that we got. So even though it was a little bit better of a personification than it was in U-571, still didn't quite land for me.
Not to pass it to Ezra, but we're planting a seed here. He did take that hard turn. I attribute to that to be like, you ever seen somebody when they finally get sort of an authority or a power that they've always wanted?
Yeah, that's fair.
That's him. That's that guy right there. He's like, oh, I could do whatever I want now. And yeah, he definitely did not Spider-Man his power and responsibility. But Ezra gets to talk about that or whatever he wants to talk about for the bad guys of Shout at the Devil. Go ahead, Ezra.
I think the Commandant, Mr. Fleischer, is a baller. He's got the clothes, he's got the hair, facial hair, he's got all the meat products he needs. He could put a charcuterie board together whenever he wants to. He is just a baller. and maybe he isn't a super villain at first, but I like the villain vibe that he has throughout the whole thing. He just seems like a guy who has henchmen. Through, whether you see them or not, he just seems like the kind of guy that has henchmen. And I think the old saying is, look good, villain good. I don't know if that's
that.
Is that it?
Close enough.
It's something like that. And he looks the part. And for me, I think he really pulled off the villainy.
Oh yeah, you hated him. You hated him by the end of the movie. That's the sign of a good villain. Anyway, let's score these things. Jason, U-571. How did you score the German Navy?
German Navy gets a 6. Did their job as far as being in the way of our heroes, which is what you want your villain to do. But beyond that, not too much.
I think it's like action film face-off lore at this point that if you don't have like a personified villain, Jared's going to give you a sub 5. Sub 5. Anyway, I gave a 4. Again, if you could put a lineup of 10 dudes in front of me and be like, which one of these guys played Nazis in U-571? I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. So they get a 4. It's not like a frowny face 4. It's better. I'm going to defend the 4 now. It's better to get this kind of a 4 when it's a nebulous villain to have an actual villain who gets a 4. You know what I'm saying? So there we are. I gave it a 4 just because not much to it other than Nazi Navy. All right, let's head to Shout Out the Devil 1976. Now, Fleischer, you love to hate him. Jason wasn't that impressed. What'd you score him at?
Well, let me just say, I did not see that 4 coming. Fleischer, he gets a 6 for me as well for reasons that we said. I get like he was supposed to be the big bad. I felt he went from comical to, almost farcical to flat out evil. If I had listened to your explanation about suddenly getting power, I might have bumped that up to a 7. So the 6 might be a little low, but that's what I honestly gave him coming into this.
Got to go with what you got to go with. And I gave him a 7. I thought he was just evil enough to be memorable. Like you, there's like not a likable thing about him, except for maybe his meats collection. It was pretty nice. And he did have a baller outfit. But at the end of the day, I gave him a 7. And now we go to Ezra to award which movie he thought had the best villainy.
Well, as I mentioned, my German family name was Getz, and I feel like I can't really give any credit to the Nazis because of that. And I'm going to have to go with Fleischer. I feel like he's a German that would have loved my family, even though he's a villain. And I'm going to go ahead and give Shout at the Devil my sniper bullet.
And that is the end of round 3.
It's time to die.
Well, I will take the ball from here for round 4, which is the overall spectacle. How visually engaging is the film overall? We're talking stunts, we're talking effects, cinematography, or the audio stimulation. What did you think of the score or the soundtrack? Let's go ahead and start with Jared on this one, and we'll talk about U-571.
Let me just say this right now. I think I'm going to have perhaps a shockingly high score for spectacle for a movie that takes place inside of a metal can. And to me, that's part of why it's going to get a high score. It gave you the feeling you were on that sub. The strongest thing that I can say in the spectacle round for U-571 is it is gripping. This is a movie that runs at, I want to say about an hour and 40, maybe an hour and 45, and it feels like a taut 80-minute thriller because it just holds you so well. You mentioned audio. A lot of it has to do with audio. It's listening to splashes and depth charges go off. And if you can make that gripping and exciting, which they did in that claustrophobic small set environment, I got to think they didn't have to, aside from outfitting actual submarines, they probably didn't have to spend a ton because once you got on the submarine, it's all set stuff in the submarine and it all looked good, just incredibly gripping. And that's going to be the majority of where my score comes from for spectacle.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. Gripping is the perfect word to use for that. And it's really well paced. It takes you from scene to scene to scene. And when it is an intense scene, it's a good character development scene. Not a lot of bathroom break times in that movie. But Ezra, what are your thoughts?
As Jared mentioned, the sound of it is really what pulls it together. I wasn't really very impressed. I don't really remember a lot about the score. It had some moments, but it wasn't anything over the top. But obviously we'll get, you guys will get to them, but there were some good action sequences in it. But to me, it is that sound of everything that really is the driver of the spectacle in this. And my trivia nuggets were that it was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for sound and sound editing, and it actually won the sound editing award.
Oh, nice.
I think that was what drove this spectacle. Like I was saying, it's the sound really puts you inside that tin can.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I think all three of us were really gripped by the sound of those depth charges. And I remember Harvey Keitel with those depth charges going on, and he's like, that one wasn't even close. And everybody was freaking out over that one. Like, that one wasn't even close. Whew. All right. Well, let's talk about Shout at the Devil. Jared, shall we? What did you think of the spectacle there?
Also a decent score coming for Spectacle of Shout at the Devil, but it gets its preponderance of its points for just sweeping beauty, not sleeping, sweeping beauty of landscapes. You can tell that Peter Hunt came from the James Bond school of filming where location matters. And he's going to get the most out of that location. He's going to make it look beautiful. He's going to make it look just gorgeous, shots of countryside, airplane shots, sweeping score, musical score. It just has a lot going for it as far as its visual look. Not nearly as gripping, much more of a meandering film than U-571, but still holds its own in spectacle just from a lot of the grand cinematography.
Yeah, I agree. As I was watching that film, I was really reminded of Majesties, particularly like that ski scene in Majesties. Like you said, just how it just soaks in that scenery. Really well said, Jared. Ezra, what do you have to add?
Yeah, just to echo that it's all about the cinematography for the spectacle of this. It looks great. The locations look great and things like that. For me, the biggest issue for spectacle, again, the score is not super memorable for me, but when it did get into the action sequences, the way they're shot kind of pulled me out of the spectacle of those moments and made me just say, I just want to see some more pictures of this landscape, because the action scenes themselves weren't really doing it for me.
No, that's a pretty good point, and a fair point overall, I think. All that's left to do is score them. So, Jared, what score are you going to give the spectacle to U-571?
Blowing myself away with this number here. I'm giving it an 8. And for a movie that 90% of it is dudes in a tin can staring around and looking concerned, that's pretty high praise. Again, just so gripping. Anytime you can just have me engaged for every tick of the clock in your film, you're going to get a high score. I gave it an 8.
Well, load 2 torpedoes in that too, because I gave it an 8 as well. Same reason that you did. I mean, it is gripping. Like I said at the very beginning, all the submarine tropes, but the thing that makes it stand apart is it is very clear in the storytelling that you are with a skeleton crew and an unfamiliar sub and a man that is not equipped initially to deal with this problem. All right. What did you give the spectacle for Shout at the Devil?
Not as gripping, but has beautiful landscapes, as we all talked about. Peter Hunt's visual eye lets him climb all the way to a 7 for me.
Lee Marvin on the Vickers at the end on that machine gun has me at a 7 as well. So, match game. But, Ezra, you can either pump up U-571 or help catch up Shout at the Devil.
My depth charge. Wait, what? No. My sniper bullet is going to go to the depth charges of U-571. Every time I saw that scene, every time I saw any depth charges, that's what kind of made the spectacle of the movie for me, and I'm going to have to just give it credit where it's due.
All right, so let it be written, so let it be done. That's the end of my round. I'm going to pass it over to Jared, and I will wait.
That must mean it's round 5.
What do we do? We die.
Round 5 is the best action scene. I pretty much hand this back to Jason. We'll start with U-571. Jason, how did you break down the action scenes for that film?
Really, I only had 3 broad action scenes that I broke out. Round 1, really, I started with the actual raiding party as they took over the boat. I called that one Raiding Party, or all right, I'm the captain now.
Question: are all three of these going to have all rights? In the? I'll wait.
Yes.
I'll just wait.
Yes, Jared, they are.
I had a feeling.
Okay, so number 2, after they take over the ship, the actual enemy sub shows up. That scene where they have to dive, escape the sub, and do, and eventually sink the sub. So I called that one Escaping the Sub, or all right, sir. Maybe now be a good time to talk about my OER. Because the captain was in the water.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, no. I guess I'm just incompetent. I can't seem to get this line to you. I don't know what's wrong.
Maybe if you recommended that I had this line.
That's right. All right. And then the third one was the destroyer, escaping and fighting the destroyer. And I called that one, all right. Just dawned on me. How many feet in meters deep are we? What? Oh, that's really deep.
Okay. Well, so you basically have the taking of the sub by force. You have the first encounter with the other sub, and then basically the escape from the Navy. Which one did you like best, Jason?
All three of these were real close for me. It's a Sophie's choice. I'm going to go with fighting the destroyer, the last one, just because there was so much going on. The above surface action when they have to take out the radio tower, the deep dive to get under the depth charges, the timing of the pop-up, the distraction of the shooting the body and the flotsam and jetsam out of the torpedo tube. I mean, it just all was super, super tense and just a great scene. So I'll give the edge to the third one, fighting the destroyer.
Yeah, you left out the part too where they went super, super deep, so deep that they started sinking.
Yes. Well, the captain said at the beginning, it'll go all the way to the bottom if we don't stop her.
He was right. I'm like you. I liked them all, but I'll give it to that third one as well. Ezra, what do you think? What's your favorite action scene from those three?
I'm going to go with all right. I'm the captain now.
That was cool.
I liked the boarding scene where they're taking over the boat. That was probably my favorite.
Yeah, a little micro moment from that one I liked is from like the super secret like OSS guy who was like running everything, and they needed him to speak German, and he froze. He was the perfect guy for behind a desk, but when they rolled up on that boat, he froze. And it took that young enlisted dude to out himself as German to save them all. I thought that was very cool.
Mainz, wasn't it? Wasn't his name Mainz?
I think so. It was definitely very cool. Although, behind the desk guy, he got his act together and eventually contributed quite well. All right, let's shift gears to Shout at the Devil. Handful of action scenes. Jason, what you got?
Yeah, I got like a half dozen here. The first one I have is the river escape, and I'm counting when Lee Marvin has to escape into the water, gets chased by the crocodile, rescued by Roger Moore. They have to get away in the boat. They get to the open sea. The German boat rams them. All that stuff that goes on. That's one big long action scenes. I call that one Nothing But Net for the.
I was hoping you call it D's Nets.
Oh, D's Nets. Oh, I missed it.
I was so sad. I even looked to Johanna when we were watching. I was like, Jason's going to call this D's Nets.
Oh, man. I don't know why I missed that one. Okay, I'm going to redo it. Or as I call it, D's Nets. Oh.
That's a good joke.
How do I do it?
We're laughing.
The second one was the actual tax collection scheme and the shootout / escape that they had to go through there. I called that one tax collection, or that system was still more fair and efficient than the U.S. tax collection system that I just paid.
It was a lot easier to follow.
It was. Somebody just show up at my door and be like, "Here, give me $200."
I like when that village totally played like they hid everything. They hid everything. That was great.
They're pinching the kids so they'd start to cry.
Yeah.
Everything. That was funny. Number 3 was the fist fight between Roger Moore and Lee Marvin. I called that one fist fight, or do you give up, or are you thirsty for more?
I want more.
Dum-dum. Fourth one, the ambush in the field with those big wheel thingies with the steel plates. I also called that one, let it roll down the hillside. Roll. Okay, next one, fifth one. Finding the Blucher, the the airplane scene where they have to go find the blue shirt. They get shot down, and I called that one. Oh no, the pilot who is making moves on my wife is burning. What will I do? What will I do? Oh, I guess we let him burn. And finally, the sixth one was sinking the blue shirt, and I called that one "You Sunk My Battleship."
I like it. Which one?
And I count all that from them infiltrating, putting a bomb on it, and jumping overboard, and then at the end.
My face.
Just trying not to mention it.
Oh, my bad. All right. Which one was your favorite?
I got to go with the sinking the blue shirt. Just Lee Marvin on that machine gun, man. Just busting caps was really cool.
Ooh, I got to think about it because I like that one and I like the fist fight a lot. So buy me some time, too. Ezra. What do you got? Ezra, you go and I'll think about mine.
Based purely off of the incredible infiltration scene, I'm going to have to go with the sinking of the blue shirt. I think it was a great sequence and I like the whole thing.
All right. I'll go ahead and join you guys with the sinking of the blue shirt as well, despite its infiltration scene. And so let's double back. Jason, U-571. We kind of decided we all like that third act, basically. And you liked it to the tune of?
I liked it to a tune of an 8. I think it was really close with all of them. That one was a little bit better. I'm not quite ready to go into 9 category, but solid 8.
I'm just right there with you. I did it at a 7. Kind of like you. I felt like they were all solid 7s. And again, for a movie that takes place in a tin can, 7s are very, very good. So I gave it a 7. Let's go to Shout at the Devil. Kind of all liked the big payoff of the blowing up of the ship at the end. What'd you score it?
I really did like that payoff. I mean, there was good fights. There was some knife fights going on in there. It was pretty cool. I gave it a 7.
This must be one of those categories where I was just in a slightly worse mood. I gave it a 6. Didn't really blow me away. No pun intended, but it was a cut above what you'd see on Made for TV. Good action. So I landed on the 6. So it's really up to Ezra now to pick which movie he thought had better action scenes. What do you got, my friend?
I'm going to go for quality over quantity here and give my sniper bullet to U-571. I just enjoyed the scenes that were there more than I enjoyed any individual one from Shout at the Devil. More than that, even, I just didn't really enjoy the way the action scenes were necessarily shot in Shout at the Devil, and I really did enjoy them in U-571.
Style matters. All right, that's the end of round 5.
Got my ass kicked.
All right. Well, I guess that just leaves the last and final round, the mulligan round, the deduction round. So this is the round for the ridiculous. Anything that we want to take a point off of? Anything stand out with either movie? Maybe Shout at the Devil a little more than the other movie. Jared, you taking any points off of U-571?
I actually am, and I'm going to tip my hand here. Both of these movies are going to end up getting 2 points taken away. All right. Okay. And 1 point from each movie is going to have to do with tactics. That's going to be my theme. But let's start with U-571. I took off 1 point because I do like it as a man's leadership journey. And as a leadership instructor, I grit my teeth every single time he punches that dude who was encouraging the other enlisted dude to shoot at the plane. And I get it. It was high tension, and he did not want his orders questioned, and he almost got them all killed. I do not like him from a leadership point of view. I do not like him punching him because the minute you have to physically discipline your troops, you're really no longer a leader. So much so, if that guy decided he wanted to throw hands with you, he has every right to. Rank is out the window. If you strike that guy, he gets to fight back. And what kind of a world would you be setting for yourself if you lost that fight in front of everybody and you were supposed to be the captain? So no, I did not like that. I would have much rather had him use his leadership skills. And I've mentioned this to other people, and they say, well, what would you have done? And my suggestion would have been to basically tell him, because there was like 2 other enlisted guys there on the deck with him. I would have said, look, I want you to look at the man left to you, right to you, and I want you to tell me their name. And I want you to tell me, do you know their parents? Do you know their name? Do you know if he's got brothers or sisters? Because you almost made sure they never saw this man again. That's what you get when you question my orders. Okay? So if you want to get everybody killed, question my orders, that's up to you. But I don't think anybody's going to appreciate it. Basically, you got to turn everybody else against him. Did not like the physical violence from the leader. And I get it's a tense scene. I mean, the Lord knows I might have done it, because that was very tense. but it's just not wise. All right, let's move on to the tactical -1. I hate how much they get down. They didn't really talk about this when they were short period of time to teach them how to tactically take a sub, right? They needed to talk about muzzle discipline and bullet discipline because you are inside of an iron tube. You start rattling off bullets, you are going to shoot yourself at some point. The ricochet in there is so ridiculous. It's just way unsafe. So they just went in like it was a damn Schwarzenegger movie. And I was like, no, man, you got to be a lot more sparing than that with your muzzle discipline inside of that kind of environment. So that is its -1 for tactics. I'll see you when we get to the second movie.
Well, I took one off for the same scene that you did. I guess I was looking at it from the non-commissioned officer's point of view. The captain should have had to do or say absolutely nothing. Chief of the boat would have dealt with that. And chief of the boat would throw hands.
Yeah, probably.
And that the most that Matthew McConaughey probably should have said, Chief, deal with this. And gone about his business. He's got other things to do.
Jason. That is the best response. Absolutely.
So, like, this isn't even worth your time. This isn't worth your energy. But you're right. I mean, because he was freaked out too. Everybody was freaked out. So, I guess from a storytelling, human perspective, I get it. I understand it. But yeah, Chief should have handled that business right then and there. 100%. That guy would have been cleaning the German commodes with his tongue. Just like, it would have been a bad day for him. So I'm taking one off from there. Let's talk about Shout at the Devil. Perfect movie. I don't see anything wrong with it. Nothing wrong at all? Nothing? All right, let's move on.
On face value, nothing wrong.
This was turned into me now. I don't know if I like it.
Oh, man, that's good.
Okay. Elephant in the room. Not the literal elephant in the movie. But yes, there is a scene, for those of you who didn't take our warning, didn't watch it, there's a scene where Roger Moore needs to infiltrate the ship because the Germans basically recruit a whole bunch of natives to come work on the ship. So he dyes his skin to blend in with the natives. And I am giving it a -1 for blackface, but my perspective, I don't have the same perspective as maybe a person of color. I'm just a white dude. But to me, it gets the -1, not because it was super offensive, because I want to go on record to say he didn't try to act like a native. It was very a physical disguise. Like, he didn't do a caricature or anything like that. So I don't want anybody to think it was that bad. It was just ridiculous. He looked like dipped in chocolate Roger Moore. That's all he looked. He wouldn't have sold anybody for more than 4 seconds with that disguise. He looked so much like Roger Moore. It was like a waste of time. And it was so contrived how they did it. They were like, oh, we need somebody who understands bombs and can be native and blend in. Well, we don't got that. Like, really? You couldn't have taught one of those guys how to, like, put this thing in and pull a pin? Come on, now, it was ridiculous. So it gets to the point, again, I can only speak from my perspective. I didn't find it particularly offensive. I just found it ridiculous. So it gets a -1 for that. And I promised you that there'd be a tactical reason I would give it -1. I got mad from a tactical point of view when they flew in the plane. They followed the tracks of the rollers. Smart. They get to the river. Smart. They start flying the river. They see the thing. They see the ship, right? They got it. The dead to rights. They know exactly where it is. And what do? What did they do? They took a second pass, low level, after the Germans had seen them. Basically, they were like, please, Germans, please shoot us out of the sky. Like, it was just the dumbest tactic.
Yeah. Okay.
Once I laid eyes on that thing, I would have gone for altitude and headed home. I got all the information I need. I know exactly where it is. Just dumb. So -1 for bad tactics there. And I rest my case, Your Honor.
-2 for exactly the same reasons you said. Boy, that was like, I was watching, I was like, surely he's not. No, you've seen it. Just keep going.
Why?
Keep going.
They even showed the German dudes, like, notice them, load the weapons.
Like, come on. The guy had time to, like, take the weapon apart, clean it, so put it back together. I'm like, what is happening here? Yeah, that was just dumb. -2.
Ezra gets any airing of grievances he has at this time. Doesn't affect scoring, but anything that he needs to talk about, get off his chest.
For U-571, yeah, I would have probably taken a point away for historical accuracy just because it was
good point
based on an event, but it was pretty inaccurately represented. And yeah, you mentioned the tactics with the muzzle discipline and stuff like that. And for me, being raised by a guy who was in World War II, and you know, the way he handled his weapons and stuff was kind of taught to me from a young age. And just seeing the way they held their guns, even when they were going, not just the lackadaisical, I'll shoot at anything, but also they weren't even holding guns right for the period or for close quarters and stuff like that. And it just seemed like that was problematic for me. And yeah, shout at the devil. I'll give it 5 points off for blackface. I don't know if anybody mentioned that, but that happened.
I don't think it came up.
Yeah, it reminded me of this time I used to play laser tag in college, and this one guy that we played laser tag with would show up, and we would play outside at night, and he'd have like a grease stick, you know, the face black that you would wear if you were going into combat, and he'd put that on. That looked less ridiculous than Roger Moore in this movie.
Thank you. I mean, that guy probably thanks you.
Yeah, that guy.
No further questions, Your Honor. Okay, so that is the end of our official rounds. All right, folks, don't worry if you haven't been keeping up with the math at home. We do that for you here at Action Film Face Off. And first of all, match game. If you guessed 3 match games and you guessed right, we matched 3 times. And looking at the sniper bullets, Ezra gave 3 bullets to U-571 and 2 to Shout at the Devil. And looking at the judges' scorecards, the winner of this episode of Action Film Face Off with a score of 70 to 66 is U-571.
Well, congratulations to U-571. Now let's head over to the randomizer and find out what the years are going to be for our next episode. My brother Jarrett will be pulling a film from
Choose Your Destiny.
2009. And I will bring a film from
Choose Your Destiny.
1971. And what will those films be? Well, we're going to tease them on social media for those of you who want to watch before listening. And we're thinking of you, Dave. Or you can tune in next episode to find out. Until then, I'm Jason Weasel Skull Albrecht, and you can find me on social media at Jason Albrecht on Instagram.
And you can find me, Jared Albrecht, the Yard Sale Artist, a.k.a. Death Probe, at Yard Sale Artist, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. Ezra, do you want people to find you? And if so, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at EasyRooster. That's EAZY Rooster. And you can also find me on Twitter at Ezra Gallo, EZRAGALLO.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. Now be sure to check out all the shows under the Longbox Crusade umbrella by subscribing to Longbox Crusade on any of your finer podcatchers or on YouTube. Or you can check us out directly at our website, www.longboxcrusade.com. If you'd like to send a question or a comment, you can do that by hitting us up on social media at Longbox Crusade on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And on Twitter, we actually have our own account, which is at AFFO Podcast. You can use that one as well. Of course, you're always welcome to leave us a voicemail at 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone.
Like it. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening. And until next episode, keep your head down
and your knuckles up.
The intro and outro theme to this show and all of our Action Film Face-Off shows are done by musical genius Joe November. Check out his SoundCloud at JOSEFLIN99. You will not regret it. Okay, folks, don't worry if you Freddy is the devil. Try it again. And you can find me, Jared Albrecht, the Yard Sale. What? Snip. Was Yep. Try it again.
She's gonna blow him away.